Alhamdulillah wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi. Consistent with the division of Akhbar. So today we shall move on to the topic of Ijtihad Akhbar al-Ahad. But before we go, that this section 4 senses, and for you all to my class on my affiliate. Inshallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that things will get back to normal and as soon as possible. In Malaysia, it is expected that by the 14th of July, we will be free of COVID-19 cases. And we pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that this will happen very soon, inshallah. As long as the CMCO control movement control order, conditional movement control order is in place, we have to conduct our classes online. And I have chosen these platforms, Twitter, Facebook, and also YouTube, to deliver my lecture rather than Google Meet or Zoom for various reasons. One of the reasons is, for example, YouTube, I figure out that it will be more accessible because you can choose the resolution or the quality of the video. So you can reduce the quality, so you will consume less data. And if you have any questions, you can ask in the comments section, be it on YouTube or Facebook or on Twitter. So we include methods if this method is not suitable. And as all of you know, this is a trial period this week. It's a pilot. Any lecturers were informed to test run ERTL, Indonesian Remote Teaching and Learning. So we'll see how it goes, inshallah. So I apologize in advance for any shortcomings because I feel a bit awkward actually. I'm not sure who I'm speaking in front of the camera, but I'm not sure whether there are people out there listening and watching. Anyway, I covered the divisions of Akhbar. So I'm sure you're familiar with Hadith Quds. Just to recap, Hadith in his own words, the love is from the Prophet and the ma'na is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The meaning is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. While Hadith Nabawi is a hadith from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, marfu'an, and we have a hadith mawquf, which is basically a statement of the companions, be it a statement, actions, or tacit approval of the companions. And then we have hadith maqtu', which is the hadith or the statement, actions, or tacit approvals of the tabi'in. And I'm sure you also have gone through the fact that some of the hadith which is considered to be mawquf can carry the hukum of marfu' due to various reasons, such as the statements of the Sahaba al asbab al-nuzul, or an action of the Sahaba which could not have been out of their own ijtihad. So these would fall under the category of marfu', even though it is on the outset mawquf. Okay, so now we shall move on to Ijtihad, intellectual research on Akhbar al-Ahad. So based on the number of transmitters, hadith or the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ can be divided into two main categories. You have what is known as mutawatir and that which is known as akhbar al-ahad. Yeah. So mutawatir basically is that which is transmitted by a large number of transmitters at each level of transmission, that it is impossible for them to come together to perpetuate a lie against the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So this is the definition of hadith mutawatir. Yeah, and this can be divided into two: mutawatir lafzi or mutawatir ma'nawi. Mutawatir lafzi meaning that the text of the hadith is as it is conveyed by the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, yani verbatim, exactly the same. Yeah. And this is also known, or another category under the subset is mutawatir al-daruri, meaning facts, yeah, which is mentioned verbally by the masses or necessarily known facts, yeah, where like salat is 5 times a day, basically how to make wudu, yeah. So basically these are known facts by the masses, and no one disputes it, except perhaps for some minor details. And then you have what is known as mutawatir ma'nawi, which is basically facts concluded from an aggregate of individual reports or a set of hadith. Yeah. So for example, the concept of aurah, we have separate hadith which talks about aurah, but when it comes together, then you can formulate from these individual reports the concept of aurah, for example. So those are some examples of hadith mutawatir lafzi or daruri, and also mutawatir ma'nawi. And then we have what is known as akhbar al-ahad, solitary reports. So basically the definition of akhbar al-ahad, it is basically reports, or narrations which does not reach the level of mutawatir, yeah, which does not reach the level of mutawatir. They are known as akhbar al-ahad. Okay, again here to reiterate, these are some examples of mutawatir lafzi or mutawatir daruri, or in other words, incontrovertible historical facts related to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. For example, the fact that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam made hijrah from Makkah to Medina. No one disputes that fact. No one will say, bring me hadith to prove that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam did migrate from Makkah to Medina. It's a well-known, established fact. Yeah. Or that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam died in Medina, was buried in Medina, and that his mosque is in Medina, or was in Medina, and his pulpit, his mimbar is in Medina, yeah, and that he honored his companions, he cared for his companions, he opposed Abu Jahl, he revered the Quran, he argued with the Quran. So these are facts which are well established and related to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which no one disputes. He argued that the Quran is a revelation. There are a number of obligatory prayers, as I mentioned just now, 5 salawat in a day, and then the prayer consists of a numbers of ruku', certain movements, yeah, and that the movements, there is a certain sequence of order, and the zakat is an Islamic obligation, so it's fasting, and also pilgrimage to Makkah. So all of these are mutawatir lafzi or daruri, in the sense that it is well-established facts, yeah, which is undisputable or indisputable. So it's necessarily known facts. So literally, mutawatir means recurrence, repetition, whereby it is shared by an indefinite number of people in such a way that preludes the possibility of the agreement to perpetuate a lie upon the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Ahad, on the other hand, as I mentioned just now, is solitary transmission or narration. Yeah. Literally is the plural of wahid is ahad. Wahid means one, so the plural of it is ahad. So basically, it is a statement reported by one, two, or more which has not yet fulfilled the requirements and conditions of mutawatir. Yeah? So that which does not fulfill the conditions of mutawatir will automatically be considered as ahad. So here we have hadith. Yeah, we have certain hadith. I remember I mentioned to you the issue of aura. Yeah, so we can have hadith or individual hadith. Yeah, on certain topics or on certain issues, but when we combine them together, we can formulate a concept out of these individual traditions. So we have, for example, a man is not to look at the aura of a man, and a woman is not to look at the aura of a woman, and a man is not to be alone with a man under one garment, and a woman is not to be alone with a woman under one garment. This hadith is recorded by Imam Muslim in his Sahih. Yeah. And we have, for example, another hadith whereby the Prophet ﷺ is reported to have said, "O Asma, when a woman reaches the age of menstruation, it does not suit her that she displays her parts of body except this and this." And the Prophet ﷺ pointed to his face and hands. Yeah, this is in Sunan Abu Dawud. And according to Abu Dawud, this hadith is mursal, yani weak, because it is a broken link. Yeah. And then we have another example here, another hadith, whereby the Prophet ﷺ is said to have left his thighs uncovered in the presence of Abu Bakr and Umar radiallahu anhuma. And when asked why he covered his knee upon the entrance of Uthman, he replied, "Should I not feel shy before one before whom the angels of heaven do feel shy?" Yeah. And then another hadith that we can find recorded in Sahih Muslim is this hadith. Two other types among the denizens of hell: the one possessing whips like the tail of an ox, and they flog people with their help. The second one, the woman who would be naked in spite of their being dressed, who are seduced to wrong path and seduces others with their hair high like humps. These women would not get into paradise, and they would not perceive the odor of paradise, although its fragrance can be perceived from such and such a distance. And in another weak hadith, the Prophet ﷺ is reported to have said, "Cover your thigh, for indeed it is aura." So all these reports, yeah, regardless of the soundness or weakness of its sanad, bear the concept of aura. Yeah, bear the concept of aura. And hence this concept is considered as sunnah or mutawatir ma'nawi, despite differences among various madhabs concerning the particulars. So generally that concept of aura is derived from these individual narrations or traditions, despite its soundness or weakness. And when it comes to an individual transmitter, individual narrator of hadith, yeah, sometimes there can be a difference of opinion, yeah, regarding his credibility. So this is a similar, yeah, to, for example, when you are asked about a character of a person, yeah. So the person's character or credibility will differ if you ask different people. Yeah, one people might say that he is a good person. Another person might say that he is not a good person. Some might be in between. You know, some might point his positive aspect and he has certain negative aspects. So if you ask many individuals about their opinion on a particular person, you will get different answers. So similarly, when it comes to the transmitters of hadith, this also occurs. So for example, we have this individual narrator by name Abu Ja'far al-Razi, Isa ibn Abdullah, known as Abu Isa ibn Mahan, yeah, who was born in the year 90 after Hijrah, yeah, and died in the year 160 after Hijrah, from Rai, of a place. So he is one of in the chain of transmitters of this hadith regarding kunut in Fajr prayer. He was one of the transmitters. Yeah, he is one of the narrators of this hadith. Yeah, he appears in the chain of transmission of this hadith. So, what is the opinion of scholars of hadith regarding this person by the name of Abu Ja'far al-Razi, Isa ibn Abdullah, or Abu Isa ibn Mahan? Yeah. So according to Yahya ibn Ma'in, he is thiqah, trustworthy. According to Abu Hatim, so these are scholars of hadith on Abu Ja'far al-Razi. Yeah. excellent, heard frequently, and he also narration may be recorded, sometimes heard, or any sometimes made mistakes. Imam Ahmad said that his Ibn al-Madini considered him as trustworthy. Ibn Ali considered him as having some weakness. As-Saji considered him as laysa bimutqin, he is not among the diligent. And according to Ad-Dashtaki, he solely reported the hadith of Qunut. Yeah? So he is the sole transmitter in which, if you trace the chain, will point back to him. Yeah? And he solely narrates this hadith. According to Ibn Hibban, he was always the only person who reported certain spurious akhbar from famous figures. So as you can see, there are opinion regarding this particular person. So that is why it comes to the hukum transmitted by Abu Ja'far, there will be differences of opinion. Some would say that narration is weak, some would consider that narration to be sound. It all depends on how they view this transmitter by the name of Abu Ja'far al-Razi. So when it comes to level of certainty, mutawatir, anything which is mutawatir, its authenticity is necessarily confirmed. So therefore, there is no need to search for the credibility of its narrators. Okay, so once the authenticity is necessarily confirmed via means of tawatur, meaning that many transmitters transmitted, that it is impossible for them to perpetrate a lie against the Prophet ﷺ, there is no need for one to investigate whether the khabar, whether the statement or the narration is sound or not, because it's automatically sound. Okay, so it prescribes and engenders certainty and definitive knowledge, certain knowledge, necessary knowledge of daruri. So that is why some scholars would argue that someone who rejects sunnah mutawatir or hadith mutawatir would fall into disbelief. Yeah. Why? Because he disputes that which is certain. Yeah, it is certain. Yeah, so here in this case, mutawatir, it is certain. However, when it comes to ahadith al-ahad, so I'm using this term interchangeably, akhbar, hadith, sunnah, ahad. Yeah, in that sense, I hope it won't confuse you. But basically, it is two sides of the same coin. Yeah. So when it comes to ahadith al-ahad, its authenticity is not confirmed. Therefore, it requires further examination on the credibility of its narrators. Yeah. So if a hadith or a khabar or a statement falls into the category of ahad, we need to scrutinize the sanad, yeah, and examine the credibility of the transmitters of that hadith. So its authenticity is not confirmed. Therefore, it requires further examination on the credibility of its narrators. And it's in terms of zanni or yaqeen, the weight of khabar al-ahad is zanni. Yeah? It is speculative knowledge or nadari or iktisabi or acquired knowledge. Yeah? It is not ilm al-yaqeen. It is not certain. Yeah, it is not certain. It is speculative in that sense. So then, to determine the credibility of the transmitter, or the transmitters in the chain of a voice, each of to exert his knowledge, yeah, talab of industrial knowledge. of Latin, and a mujtahid therefore is an expert. Yeah? It's considered an why? Because he has to exert himself industriously in acquiring knowledge, and in doing so he must be equipped with a certain set of skills. Yeah. So ijtihad in the case of khabar al-wahid or akhbar al-ahad is in the determination of the veracity of a narrator. So if the veracity is approved through a potential mean, there's a high probability of truthfulness. It is then an obligation upon the mujtahid to accept the narrator's report. Identifying the divine intention in a certain ruling based on a number of clues and signs qiyas is similar to the determination of a narrator's veracity. There is no difference between the two tasks, the task of a mujtahid in fiqh and the task of a mujtahid in hadith. Yeah. Because when we talk about mujtahid, or when we mention this term mujtahid, we are normally drawn towards the mujtahid in the areas of fiqh. But there are also scholars of hadith which we have to consider as mujtahid as well, because they also have to exert himself or herself industrially to determine the veracity or the credibility of a narrator, and this requires ijtihad. And that is why Al-Khatib al-Baghdadi, there are two types of mujtahid here, mujtahid in fiqh and also mujtahid in hadith, and there is no difference between the tasks of the two, meaning it's of equal importance. So these are just to illustrate the experts in hadith and the breadth of their experience with traditions. So for example, we have Al-Hafiz Hamad ibn Abi Usama, who has gone through 100,000 narrations, or studied 100,000 narrations. Similarly, Ibn al-Madini, also 100,000 narrations. Yahya ibn Ma'in, up to 600,000 narrations or more. Abu Zur'ah al-Razi, up to 100,000 hadith, which he has gone through. Abu Quraib al-Hamdani, more than 300,000 ahadith. So this is just to illustrate the level of expertise of the scholars of hadith. See the number or the volume of hadith which they have to go through and examine. Yeah. So when we talk about ijtihad, there will always be differences. Yeah. And also in the narration of hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the Prophet mentioned about Qadi, whenever he is to make ijtihad. The Prophet ﷺ mentioned about making ijtihad, that if one makes a correct ijtihad, he will attain 2 rewards. Yeah, and if a person makes a wrong ijtihad, he will only get 1 reward. So that process of making ijtihad is an act which is rewarded by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Whether you arrive at that which is correct or not, you will be rewarded. So if you arrive at a correct conclusion, you will be gaining another reward. And this differences is evident, for example, we can see even between angels. I will go through this tradition. So here, even the angels, so a dispute or had differences. This anecdote is just to illustrate that. So even the angels had certain disputes. Another example. Negative, so the man was killed. 100 is killed. the learner. He also asked a question to the scholar. He told him that he had killed 100 people and asked him if there was any chance of his repentance to be accepted. And the scholar replied in the affirmative, meaning that he said, "Who stands between you and